Alright, so with so many questions coming in about these pillars that I did in my truck here, 14 Silverado by the way, I figured I'm just going to make a video on it because it's a little bit easier to explain shit. So we'll focus on these aluminum rings right now since that's what the majority of the video is, but these are made out of 1/4 inch aluminum. They're 3/16 of an inch wide, the ring thickness is, and they've got a 45-degree chamfer on them. This is just 6061 aluminum, just standard shit. And those are the Focal Utopia grills that come with them. And actually, the grills are just pressure fit in there right now. The drivers aren't in it yet. So I was wanting to get these things water jetted. I've been talking to Cristiano about it because I seen something he did a long time ago, and I always wanted to make little thin rings like this because, you know, your factory shit like this, all the knobs, it's got stuff like that on it, and I don't see a lot of that done, and it just adds like an amazing detail. So I just went for it. But I was originally gonna have them water jetted because I was feeling lazy, and then like, nah, screw that. And I got that CNC, and I'm like, you know, I'll cut it on the CNC, but I don't have the right bit for that. I don't trust myself on that machine good enough yet to be wasting aluminum. So what I did was I cut a template out of 3/4 inch MDF for both of these rings, the same shape, with the CNC. So the template I use is a CNC template. You could make that by hand though, just throwing that out there. Don't say I'm cheating or anything, because it probably would be a little bit easier to make the shape by hand than it would be to figure out a vectored shape for this dude here. That kind of sucked. But anyways, so we're going inside here. You're gonna have to excuse the shop because I don't do a whole lot of work here and it's a fucking mess. But anyways, where the hell's my piece? Okay, so first things first, compressor's on, sorry. I've got the ring adhered to a piece of 1/4 inch plexiglass so I can actually feed it through the router, because otherwise you're going to take your hand off. You could use the Fukuda router shield. I don't have one. Probably should just buy one, but anyways. And I'm actually going to leave this on here until I'm completely done with it. I'm going to polish it and everything on here because it's way easier to hold on to it with this big piece and with that ring on there than it is to try to sand and polish a little bitty ass 1/4 inch ring. So I've got this adhered to that with, you can kind of see it, that clear super adhesive Tesa tape. And then I've got the aluminum ring actually glued to the piece of wood, because oil's going to saturate any kind of tape you put on it. I tried it and I fucked up. So I've got that CA glued to that, and it would be a smart idea to try to make that template out of like acrylic or something, but like I said, I don't have the bit to cut that. I'm not even going to deal with it. I've already cut and done 2 of them out of wood, so it'll be alright. So what you want to do is first you've got to have some kind of lubricant. That's like the most important part when you cut aluminum. I've cut it without lubricant before. Don't know how it worked, but I did it. So I've got this shit here that I found at a local place. Supposedly the Lennox lube tube is the best, but I've got this. So I've got just a standard flush trim bit, nothing special. It's just a white side bit. I've had it. I did the whole sound room with it. It works. It's probably dull, but you know what? It cuts clean. And on the top I've got a 5-inch bearing. Now the reason why I'm doing that is because I've rough cut this and it's pretty close, but I'm going to go around and I'm going to take off a little bit of material at a time. You don't want to go diving into that shit full bore and try to cut more than like a 1/16 of an inch, because it leaves shit cuts and it's dangerous. So I'm going to lube that up real good with my slugger or whatever the hell it's called. And I've got this ghetto thing on this router here because I don't have a lift here. My router's not that great. I don't do a whole lot of work here. If I was at home, that's where the good shit is. But anyways, so I'll lube that up real nice, and now I'm gonna hand it over to my dude here so we can film this. This part's not as important to get clean cuts as the last one. Move it up real nice. So now it's 1/16 of an inch bigger than it needs to be, so I'm going to go back over it with the 1/2 inch bearing, and it should be flush onto that. I always cut the inside first, I don't know why. It works good though. That will be the outside. See how clean that cut is. It's all about the lube. Alright, let's go. Alright, so just like doing this with the bigger bearing, when you run a chamfer on that, I've just got a standard little chamfer bit in there. When you do that, you want to do it little bits at a time. So you can kind of see here, I've got it maybe, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch up. About what I need. So you want to do that little bits at a time, and then on your final pass you want to raise it up just a little fuzz, just to take off that little edge and leave a clean cut. So lots of lube on that, and I'm going to go ahead and run the chamfer on that. I'm not going to film it because you get the drift, and then I'll come back with the polishing. Alright, so now that this is down where it needs to be, it's got a chamfer on it, just the 45. Leaving it on this. Now you can take it off this piece of plexi, but I would highly suggest leaving it on that ring. Pretty much anything, like any kind of little ring like this, it's good to have something to hold on to. Now your bigger shit, you don't really need to do that, but this, it makes your life 10 times easier. Plus it sits nicely right there. So it's a good thing after you get done machining it, blow it off and take some like wax and grease remover, paint prep something, and get all the oil off of it, because you don't want this shit on there when you sand it. Now I like to do a little bit of extra work on one step rather than do more steps. I start at 320 grit, and then I move to 600, 800, 1200, and then I buff. Now some people will say, oh, you only have to go to 600 and then you can buff. I don't like doing that. But anyways, if it's not real rough, you know, this is good. You can get this with 320. Or if it's actually a flat piece, like if you're just trying to polish the top of something, You could probably start with 600 or 800 on a DA and it'd be much less work. But anyways, I use these little 3-inch discs that go on my little polisher down there. I can't use that on this because it's too small, but I actually just wrap it around a piece of dowel rod so I can get down in here. So what you want to do with the 320 anyways, this is going to be hard to do because I'm by myself, but you need to get it to where you don't see any machine marks anymore. And it's, you don't want to do this with your finger either. The reason being is because you've got a nice 45 here. If you do this with your finger, it puts pressure on the edges of it and you don't get the center, you just get the sides, and it could mess it up. But you want to get all the machine marks out of here and just have a nice even scratch surface, and don't just go one direction. Don't go like that, especially since the machine marks are this way. You just go like that, you won't see them. You got to go, I like to do them swirls and do multiple directions and make for damn sure that all the chatter marks that are going this way and all the machine marks that are going that way are out. And then after that, you do with that 320, you go up to 600, 800, 1200, and then you buff. Now I'm going to do this, I'll show you what it looks like when it's all sanded down with 320, and then I'll show you 1200, and then I'll show you how I buff it, and then that's it. Alright, I've sanded a little bit with 320, and I want to bring something up here. Number one, you probably want to wear a mask when you do this, especially if you're using a DA, because aluminum's some nasty shit, and it will give you a headache. Okay, so you can kind of see there, I've knocked this down with 320, but you can see some like ridges, sort of like right here, that, you know, you'd think there's even scratches on it, so you'd think you might be done with the 320, but you're really not. You need to get it to where none of, like when you get the light on it, you don't see anything like that, because when you polish it, that will show up uneven, because you will be able to polish that and it will show up just like that, uneven, and just doesn't look right. So I'm going to sand a little bit more on this with 320, and when it's done, I'll show you the finished product. Alright, I'm done with 320. You can see it's a nice even machine look there. You could almost leave it like that if you wanted to. I'd probably go a little higher, but it's 900 degrees in here. It's like 90 out today. I have no AC. All I have is my fan. It's not on, so I'm actually kind of wet sanding this. My sweat's dripping on it. This came off just from me working with it, so I'm just going to leave it off. But one thing I like to do, I like to go back when I'm done with one grit before I move to the next, and go back and give it an even little coat of sanding there, so that all the sand marks are in one direction. That way when you start with the next grit, you can clearly see where you're going, and it also kind of gives you another guide cut to see if you're good with that grit. So I'm going to move up to 600, 800, 1200, and then when I buff, I'll start filming again. But what you want to do with, if you've never done any body work before, when you move up in grit, that's not really, whatever you start with is to even it out. Whatever you go up from there and keep going is just to get the scratch marks, the sand marks from the previous grit out. So when you do this with 600, you want to go back, do 2 or 3 different directions, and make sure you can't see any 320 marks. Same with 8 and 12. The higher you get, the easier it is. But if you do not get all, at least up to 600, 800 out, you will see it when you buff it. They'll be buffed, but you will see scratch marks in it, and you do not want that. So I'm gonna go get to it here, and then I'll be back when I need to buff. Alright, so I'm filming this as a selfie with the front camera, so apologize if it's shit quality. You can see, hopefully, that it's like a nice satin finish, very even. And this is 1200 grit. If you're gonna do this a lot, I suggest just buying the whole rolls or boxes of the 3M shit. It is expensive, it's about 30 bucks a box, but it's worth it, comes in handy. So I've got it on this. I wish I would have been able to keep it on the plexiglass piece. I probably could put it back on, but we'll just get it done. This is what I'm using to polish this. Some people were saying use a bench grinder, but I mean, putting this on a bench grinder, I can just see that flying across the room. Not to mention being able to get inside this, probably not gonna happen. So this is like a cone. I don't really like this thing because at the top, when it spins, it wobbles, but It actually works pretty well on this because I can buff with the compound down here, and then I can polish it up here where there is no compound, which is kind of what you want to do. Now, the compound I'm using is from Mobile Solutions. It's the blue shit. There's a blue, a white, and a red. Now, the blue and the white are meant for plexiglass, but a lot of people use it on aluminum. It works the best, I think. I think the red's got a little bit rougher cut to it, so you could do a two-step if you wanted to, but I think this works just fine. So you can see it. That's kind of what I was talking about, kind of shitty. But get your compound on there. Also, with a bench grinder, those aren't real good to use because they spin too fast. You want to use a bench buffer. But anyways, we'll go ahead and start to polish. You can feel it heat up too, it'll get hot. And don't skimp on the buffing compound either. I've had this block broke in half, but I've had this for literally 5 years, and I still have enough to last me my whole life. So. But when you're doing this, you'll see it right now. It starts to get shiny, but you know, it's not real chrome yet. It's just kind of a polished aluminum look. So I'm going to keep doing that a little bit, a couple more times, make sure I get all the sand marks out of it. Also, don't go full speed with this. This thing spins at like, what, 15,000 RPMs? Don't go full speed. So now, once you can see that it's kind of a, you know, a polished look, but it's kind of got a black tint to it, go back with the other part of a buffing wheel the opposite direction and make sure it's clean, and then you're actually buffing that. So when you go around in this direction, you're cutting into it, and then you want to buff the other direction. You also want to be careful too that your arbor on your polisher here does not nick this. A lot of times I cover it in electrical tape, so in case it does go down into it, it's not going to fuck your piece up. But I like to get down in here, the end part of this cone, polish that inside. Nice and chrome. So you can see it didn't take me too long to polish that. Wipe it off. Now you can use like a mother's polish or something on this if you really want to get it shiny and protect it. But right now I think this is good. See how shiny that is? It's glass. Alright, so here it is all done. See, it's nice and chrome. You want to be real careful when you wipe it off too, because I mean, any kind of rag can scratch this shit. It's one downfall to it. It scratches when you clean it. For surface scratches like that, usually you can use some kind of aluminum polish. You can see some of my fingerprints on it there, but usually use some kind of aluminum polish, you know, like wadding polish or whatever, and it'll get that shit out. That's the good thing about this. If it ever gets dirty or scratched or something, you can just take it off and repolish it. So here's the passenger side pillar. This one's not made yet. I'm going to make that here in a minute, but You see it just pressure fits down in there. Nice and smooth. Grill will go in there over the tweeter. Now here's this part of the pillars that I got the most questions about. So Matt Schaefer's the one who turned me on to this idea, so I must thank him for that because he saved my damn life. When you do this is just Stinger grill cloth. There's probably different ways to do this, but this is how I did it and got it to work. The foam headliner sucks. I hate that shit. But it's the same principle as this stuff. So you really can't glue, behind this because it'll soak through. You could do 2 layers or something, but this way's pretty easy. So what I did on the back of this, I taped this off, taped the rings off, and I sprayed it with the Super 77, just the 3M shit. Sprayed the inside of the rings. I sprayed this edge down here, right here, anywhere that meets up with the car, and I sprayed the back. And then I started out with this edge here and made this perfectly straight. And the reason why I did that is because you're going to stretch it, whoops, and you want the lines in this to actually be straight. Now on the back side of it by the window, I guess it doesn't really matter as much, but where you see this, if it's all fucked up and wavy, it's going to look stupid. So I did that, and then painstakingly, with one person, I held it and I stretched it over. There's no glue on the front of this, remember now. Stretched it over and pulled it onto the back side, stuck it onto the back, pulled this down, stuck this down. So this is actually floating over this surface. Now right here you can see, you can push down on this slightly because it's not actually stuck to anything, but that's even. I mean, this hits the car here and pushes this up and it looks perfect. Right here is completely sucked down in there when you put the ring in there. I'm gonna, once the driver gets in here, the rings stay in there a little tighter, but and then I went back because the 77 shit's not super reliable, and I CA glued the edges of all this material, and it's been in my car for 3 or 4, 5 days now, and it's been 90 degrees every day, and it still looks the same as when I did it. So yeah, that's about it. I'm gonna make this other ring. One thing is I am nowhere near a professional at doing aluminum. There's guys out there that could whip my ass with aluminum, and there's probably easier ways of doing shit, but that's how I did these. So I hope you enjoy this, and I hope it helps you out some, and I'm out.